This video is on what if Naruto was the Sage of 10 Paths Part 2. The like goal for this video is 37 likes. Sooner the like jail is meet sooner I will upload the next part for this what. If you enjoy this what if, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto nor this what if. A week has passed since the birth of one Uzumaki Naruto, and in that week a lot has changed. Many were still unknown to the world, others not so much. When the Kyabai attack Konoha, everyone has heard of it within a week. Some of the other villages wanted to attack them, seeing as that they were at a weakened state, Iwagakure being the first to try and plan for an attack, only to decide against it when not one, but both of their Jinchuriki fell into a coma all of a sudden. They planned to use their respective bija holders to attack the village hidden in the leaves, yet now they were in a turmoil, unknown to them. Every other major hidden village, and some not as major, were also experiencing the same with their Jinchuriki. They tried to wake them, some even used painful methods to do so, but to no avail. It worried their Kage, for they lost a huge amount of power with their bija holders in a sudden coma. They were all unsure of what to do, so they decided to just wait and see when they would wake up. Every Kage had done tests to see why their Jinchuriki had suddenly fallen into such a prolonged state of unconsciousness, yet they couldn't find anything wrong with them. They didn't have chakra exhaustion to their knowledge. They weren't suddenly attacked from the inside by their respective bija, even if that was the last case to check, seeing as it was almost impossible for most to receive an attack from the beasts within them. Neither did suddenly get an illness to suddenly just fall unconscious. It was only a week after they fell into unconsciousness that they had all started to awake, even if it went unknown to every other hidden village in their similar problems. When they were all awake, each individual was attacked with questions to try and find out what happened to them, yet no one had an answer. Every Jinchuriki individual had yet to feel anything different, apart from the sudden tiredness that they could not explain. Those Jinchuriki who had the power and knowledge to enter their mindscapes, had done so, only to find their own bija asleep behind their respective seals. They did try to wake them, yet neither the Hikobi nor the Nibai or even the Gobi and Rokubai had even stirred from their slumbers, which did seem odd to their partners. When every Kage got knowledge of this, they just dropped the cases, seeing it as just something random or weird. Also because their Jinchuriki were now awake, they didn't think anything of it and just shrugged it off. They were wary of their bija holders at first, but as another week passed and nothing else happened, they just let it go entirely as just something concerning their bija, though every individual was told to inform their Kage if something else happened, just so that they could be prepared if said bija were to escape somehow. That doubled for the Jinchuriki of the Hikobi, as the Kazekage had ordered his finest seal masters to tighten the seal of his son, a young red-haired boy with the kanji of love on his forehead. Although those seal masters weren't that informed with Fuinjutsu, the only one knowing anything about sealing was an old short lady. The young boy had surprisingly awoken to feel a lot better, for his respected bija always kept him up and refused to let the boy sleep, so when he fell into his prolonged state of unconsciousness, the entity of Sunagakure had gone into a panic. Though nothing happened to him, and unknown to him, even his own bija was also asleep, just like every other bija within their respective hosts, ranging from the Ikibi holder to the Hikobi holder. Yet the holder of the Kyabai no Yoko, the young Uzumaki Naruto, was awake the entire time, and the unbelievable had happened to him, unknown to everyone, Kanehagakure no Sato. While everything else happened around the elemental nation, a newly born red-haired baby born in the village hidden in the leaves, had been experiencing his own set of troubles. Though he had no way of defending himself as he was barely a few weeks old, Konoha was still in a state of emergency, and while the Sandaime Hokage had retaken his position, much to his and his old teammates' misfortune, all the while everyone had suddenly become aware of the newest Jinchuriki. The problem for Sarutobi Hiruzen was that he didn't know who leaked the information. Yet he had his suspicions, seeing as only a few individuals from his council had been informed of the newborn status. That only caused more problems for the Sandaime, for most of the populace of Konoha had demanded the demon to be executed, only that had caused for Hiruzen to install a new law within the village. Anyone who dares speak of the Kyabire of Uzumaki Naruto being the Jinchuriki of the beast will be executed on the spot. Without a trail came the booming, yet the old voice of Sarutobi Hiruzen. After that, everyone just kept their mouths shut, though their anger towards the boy only increased. No one dared to do anything or say anything about it, for the position of Kage didn't go to just about anyone. Let alone did anyone want to anger their longest running Hokage. They all respected their Sandaime, although not everyone liked his new rule, with Naruto. The young boy of only 2 weeks old had been sent to the orphanage to be taken care of. Even if Sarutobi Hiruzen or a few other clan heads wanted to take the boy into their clans, only some of them had wanted to do it to increase their power, for the power of a Jinchuriki was vast. Especially the holder of the strongest of bija known to man. Those same thoughts were the ones that caused the Sandaime to send the red-haired boy to the orphanage. Even though he did it with a heavy heart, he also told the caretakers that if any harm came to his new surrogate grandson, that they will be dealt with accordingly. Let anything happen to Naruto, and I will have your head, were his exact words. They were caretakers, so taking care of babies was in their job description. They nodded as fast as their heads could nod without them hurting themselves, seeing as that it was a direct order from their Kage, and even though they didn't want to do it, they knew they had to. The young red-haired boy was currently sleeping, something he surprisingly did a lot. When he was awake he did cry, but only to a bare minimum. His caretakers didn't care or worry though, as they didn't want to take care of the demon. It just meant more time for themselves. Unknown to them or anyone else for that matter, young Uzumaki Naruto was in constant pain. He didn't show it, nor could he feel it as the beast within him took the pain away. That was also the reason why he slept so much, because of his bija healing him constantly. The pain though, was because of his chakra coils that were undeveloped, seeing as because he is still a newborn baby, no one knew of it, not even Naruto himself. But every time he went to sleep, his chakra coils were growing. Normally said growth was nothing special, especially for a baby that was born from shinobi parents, yet for the young red-haired boy, his chakra coils were not only growing, but they were tearing themselves apart, only to heal and grow again. His chakra coils were constantly being destroyed while growing, and it was all happening unknown to anyone. All but one knew of this, the bija within Naruto, who was the cause behind everything. The Jubai wanted his host to be strong, so he constantly fed his own chakra to Naruto, which destroyed his chakra coils because of its growth, only to be healed by said bija each time. The entity fed Naruto's chakra coils as chakra, healed him and took away the pain that came with everything, all the while said bija only had half of his maximum chakra. When the Jubai got separated into the 9 bija, it knew that when it was time for its return, that it would not have all its chakra back, and it would have even less chakra the longer it took for the entity to be reformed. The Jubai did at least have a plan for that, and that was to absorb the chakra from around him while within his new host. At the moment, the being only took the chakra from the nature that was around him, not wanting to draw any attention to his host. Yet said being also knew that it couldn't take chakra from anyone by just resting inside its host, and the only way for it to regain its chakra, was to just wait for it to return. The entity figured that it would have to wait only 1 year before it had all its chakra back, which was okay for the Jubai. It had nothing but time at the moment, seeing as it was within a host that he wanted to help grow, but also to test when the child came of age. Naruto, on the other hand, did not know any of this or anything for that matter. He got fed daily, though his caretakers only fed him the bare minimum to keep him alive. They also had to bathe him and do everything for him. Because of his young age, it took them, though they didn't want to anger their cages, they valued their own lives. While all that was going on, another problem arose, a problem yet to be known to the world. The aforementioned problem appeared within a cave, and inside the cave stood only a few individuals. Some were in holographic states, as they were not in the cave, only their holograms were. Only 2 of the individuals were solid beings, as they formed 2-man teams. Every individual had one thing in common which could be easily seen by anyone that they came across, and that was their clothing. They all had on a black cloak, with red clouds adorned all around said cloak. They stood in a circle, and while holographic figures couldn't be identified because of the lack of any color to them, the two figures that were the only ones that appeared to be solid could be identified. One had blonde hair that was tied into a ponytail, the other seemed to be a hatchback figure. They also had on straw hats that covered their faces, making it look like they were hiding from the world. The only reason the blonde-haired man's hair could be identified was because of the current situation. "Kakazu, Deidara, be quiet!" came a voice from among the holograms that spoke with authority in his voice. Both mentioned individuals obeyed, as they didn't want to anger the person that told them to keep their mouths shut. Said individual, while also wearing a cloak, was also wearing a mask with one hole in. An eye showed from behind the hole, yet it was not a normal eye. The eye that showed appeared to be red, with 3 tomoe in each eye, which could be identified as the jutsu from the Uchiha clan, the Sharingan. "Asshole," the blonde-haired man muttered quietly, which he directed toward the other person with whom he fought with just a few seconds ago. Said person didn't even acknowledge the blonde, not caring about the argument in the slightest, for he cared about money, and the blonde cared about his art, which was why they argued before they got silenced, saying which one was better and which one meant more. "Now if you will, Zetsu, tell us what you have found out." Another man spoke. This one seemed to have short spiky hair and brown eyes. On his right stood someone that looked its head was between 2 plants that grew from his neck, which was also the person he was speaking with. Said individual, while having plants grow from its neck, also only had half a mouth. One half also seemed darker than the other, though both halves seemed to look like they were in thought. "It seems the plan didn't go like we wanted." "Konoha is still standing," spoke the plant figure known as Zetsu, both of its sides taking a turn to talk. "That is okay. They have been crippled and lost their yondaime. The fall of Konoha will come, just not today. We know of it." "New Kyabai Jinchuriki, the child of the yondaime," came the voice of the man with a mask on his face, only to continue speaking after a few seconds. "Our plans will continue as planned, only with a delay of at least 3 years. We will monitor the Jinchuriki as much as we can without revealing ourselves to the world. We also need to gather more allies along the way. The most concerning matter at the moment is to find anything we can regarding that which we need to start our end plan. Zetsu and I will handle that thought, along with Nagato." The masked figure concluded, ending his speech afterward. The people he mentioned nodded before the holograms of almost everyone faded, leaving only the masked figure along with Zetsu 3 other people behind. "Let us continue our search for our tool," came the dark voice of the black part of Zetsu before the plant figure seemingly disappeared into the ground. The remaining people followed soon after, all individuals leaving in groups of 2. Kumagekure no Sato. 2 years later. "What?" a very large man shouted, located in the biggest tower from with Kumagekure no Sato. Said man was currently behind his desk, his chair laying on the side on the ground, indicating that he had suddenly jumped out of his seat. The table that he sat behind was also broken, another clear indication that the man was angry. Said man, while huge, was also dark-skinned with a huge muscular build. He also had blonde hair combed backward, along with a small mustache and goatee of the same blonde color. The blonde-haired man was currently wearing a white hori while shirtless with 2 golden vambraces on his wrist which could be seen clearly. This was the yondaime Raikage of Kumagekure. "What do you mean they're gone? How can that be possible?" The Raikage yelled again at the 2 people standing in front of him, one being another large man with the same skin color as the Raikage while also having the same hair color as the man in front of him. The man also wore oval-shaped sunglasses with a wide-colored Hittite forehead protector. With that, he also wore a one-strap over one shoulder flak jacket with a long red rope belt tied around his waist with hand and shin guards, which were common for Kamo Shinabi. To finish it off, he also had on Shinabi sandals followed by a white scarf around his neck. On his back were 7 swords, indicating that the man was a Kenjutsu user of a high degree. The second person was a woman with long, straight blonde hair bound with taut bandages. She also had dark eyes with dark lipstick. The woman wore a short-sleeved black and purple blouse with black pants, both having a similar design of clouds on them. She also had on purple fingerless gloves with white chain-like beads around her left hand. To complete her look, the woman also had on a standard Kumu Hittite, shinabai sandals and a kunai holster strapped to her right thigh. Yujito, tell me this instant what happened. How can both your bija just be gone? Their leader yelled out, angry at what the two had told them only minutes prior. The woman, Nujito, bowed her head slightly to her leader before she spoke up. It's like we said, Raikage-sama, we don't know what happened. I woke up this morning to try and talk to the Nibai again, only this time she was gone along with my seal. I don't have any explanation of how that can be possible, Yujito said while looking at the muscular cage before she continued. I mean, if she was somehow extracted from me while asleep, then I wouldn't be here at the moment, as we all know that when that happens, the host dies. Yet, I'm still here, just like B-sama, though I can say that over the last few years, as we reported before, I have been unable to use the Nibai's chakra at all, just like B-sama reported being unable to draw power from the Hukibi. Both our chakra levels have also depleted a lot as well. The blonde-haired woman finished speaking while glancing at the man next to her whenever she mentioned his name. Killer Bee and Nujito had been giving reports to their cage for the last 2 years, the reports concerning their respective bija. Now they had reported that both of them were just gone with no trace left behind. Their seals had also vanished into seemingly thin air, something that was supposed to be impossible without their hosts knowing about it. The wreckage, rubbed his forehead before he spoke to them. This is a disaster, losing both the Nibai and the Hukibi to seemingly who knows what. We need to get to the bottom of this while also keeping it under locks. Don't tell anyone else about this, am I understood? Their leader spoke to them in a commanding tone of voice, receiving nods from both Killer Bee and Nujito, all the while not seeing let alone sensing the plan-like figure that was within the room as well. Zetsu was hiding in the shadows of the cage tower while listening on in the conversation, all the while hiding his presence from everyone before the plan-like figure dissolved back into the ground with only one thing going through his head: what? How can they just be gone? Zetsu thought as he also tried to sense for both the Nibai and Hukibi from within their hosts, only to find that they were telling the truth. The same incident was currently happening all around the elemental nations. Every village that had a Jinchuriki had been going through the same thing as Kumagakure. Their respective bija holders reported to them, after trying themselves yet again for the numerous times to get into contact with their bija, that they had suddenly disappeared. The young red-headed boy from Sunagakure that had been able to go to sleep for the past 2 years, had reported to the Kazakage that his mother, as he used to call her for a very short time, had been asleep after he was able to enter his mindscape. The Ikibi had been unresponsive to the young red-headed boy no matter what he tried, or what his leaders had told him to try. To find out that the bija was just gone, enraged the cage from Sina, as he then ordered the old woman who had checked up on his seal the previous time to make sure what he was saying was true. She had immediately told him that he was not lying, for the seal that was once visible on his forehead was gone, just like the Ikibi. It happened in Iwagakure as well, where the Tsuchikage had nearly blown his 2 Jinchuriki away with his abilities once they informed him of the situation. The old cage had ordered for them to be checked out as well to make sure they were truly gone, for he too didn't want to believe what he was told. In Takigakure no Sato, the same happened, followed by Kirigakure as well. It all happened on the same day at the same time, while no one on the outside knew any wiser. Zetsu knew of Kumagakure because the plant being had to check up on the Hukibi's progress. For Killer Bee was known for being able to fully control his bija at will back before he fell into a coma like the other 7 Jinchuriki did. The only place that did not know of anything was Konoha. Their Jinchuriki, being the youngest one, didn't even know of his status, let alone anything else. The young 2-year-old boy, whose birthday was today as well, only knew of the people around him treating him differently, as they rarely fed him, even when he cried for food or anything else. It was 2 months later that word got spread about the disappearance of the Bija. That also only happened because of the respective cages that had let their top shinobi know of the sudden loss in power to their villages. No cage wanted to let the news get past their walls, in fear of having their enemies come to their doors because of their power loss. Each cage then found out about it not being just their Jinchuriki that lost their power, all because of the spies they had in one another's village. When the word got to the leaders, they had immediately called for a council meeting to discuss the sudden news. It seems like it wasn't just our Jinchuriki that lost their bija. Taki, Suna, Kari, and Iwa had lost their bija as well, came the booming voice of the Raikage as he was speaking to the people of his council. One of the elders of Kumagakure then asked the same question that was flying around not just in their meeting: what of Konoha, who was their Jinchuriki, and did he or she also lose the Kyabai? That is one thing we did not know of. We are just going to assume, for now, that they lost their power as well because of it happening not only here, but all around the elemental nations. A voiced his opinion, he not knowing who the Jinchuriki of the Kyabai was nor what had happened after the attack that they knew about. After that, and after each village concluded with their council meetings, it was decided to let their people know, all of them, the loss of power was massive, though if it happened all around the world, then they didn't see why they needed to keep it secret and have their now ex-Jinchuriki subjected to the pain they went through so much because of what they once held. They wanted to lessen the burden their shinobi had to carry and let their people know that they no longer had any monsters sealed within them. It resulted in what they hoped for: peace towards their shinobi that had sacrificed so much. The people all around the respective villages began to treat the now ex-Jinchuriki with kindness and respect. Though not all the villagers at once accepted it, they were starting to warm up to it, and the cages knew that it would only be a matter of time before the world-changing event settled and their villagers accepted it all. There was only one problem: while the villagers of every other village had begun to accept what they were told, Konoha was an entirely different story. Konohagakure no Sato, council meeting. What do you mean that all the bija are gone, Hokage-sama? Came the voice of one of the elders from Konoha, an old woman with the name of Koharu. She, along with everyone else present at the moment within the council meeting, just heard from their leader, that all the bija had disappeared. He had only heard it minutes prior, when one of his old students and current spy master of Konoha, told him what he had found out not that long ago. The white-haired man called Jiraiya, one of the legendary three Sannin, had been informed of the events happening all around the elemental nations not too long ago. When he heard the news, he immediately set out to go home to inform his cage. That had led to the current meeting taking place, as Konoha was uninformed of what was happening in the other villages until now. The reason for that being because of Naruto's age. The 2-year-old boy couldn't even form a full sentence, let alone tell them of something he was unaware of. Just like I said, Koharu, Kumagakure along with Iwagakure and every other village that had a Jinchuriki had reported that their bija had just disappeared. From what Jiraiya had told me, it had happened months ago, and word got out to their top shinobi only recently, came the old yet stern voice of the Sandaime Hokage. Then what about our Jinchuriki? Had we lost our weapon as well? This question came from another old shinobi, one that seemed to be draped in bandages that covered the right side of his face as well as his entire right arm. Hiruzen became angry at the man when he mentioned Naruto being a weapon, only he did not voice it nor did he show it. We will find out soon, Danzo. I have sent Jiraiya to look at young Naruto before the meeting started, the aged cage told the bandaged man, who in return gave a slight nod, only for the doors to the meeting room to open. They all looked towards the entrance, finding the man that was just mentioned at the entrance. Jiraiya walked towards his old sensei as he then whispered something to the old man, who in return grew slightly wide-eyed, not enough for anyone to see through. Giving a slight nod afterward, Jiraiya stood back and went to stand behind the Hokage, signing. Hiruzen spoke up, it seems that we are also now short of a Jinchuriki. The Kyabai had disappeared just like all the other bija. The seal on Naruto is also gone and there isn't even a trace of anything left behind, he informed them, only for a man from the civilian side of the council to speak up. Does that mean the demon is gone? He did not receive his answer as the man who questioned the Hokage fell to the ground, his head rolling to one side while his body fell to the other side. The rest of the civilian council grew shocked at this while most of the Shinobi side of the council had smirks on their faces. My law still stands, do not forget your place in this village and who you answer to. This time Hiruzen had anger behind his voice, controlled anger that was backed by not only his killer intent but also by the white-haired man standing behind him as he too got angry at the way the man addressed Naruto. Tell the villagers of this, as I'm sure all the other villages have done the same by now. Make sure you tell them the truth, or else you will be held responsible and will find yourself without a head if the message is spread wrongly. Hiruzen ordered his people before he called the meeting adjourned. As they left, Danzo had only one thought before he disappeared himself. How could this have happened? Our weapon is gone. I could have molded him into a fine shinobi afterward. He left, not knowing the same thought ran through many others' heads, just without them thinking of Naruto as a weapon or molding him into a fine shinobi. Soon after the word got spread, with every village having their villagers accepting what they had been told little by little. The only difference was Konoha, again, while the other ex-Jinchuriki's lives became happier, Naruto's life becomes more difficult, the reason for that being the people taking the message they received wrongly. When they got the word exactly as Hiruzen wanted, the unthinkable happened. The people of Konoha had begun asking, why isn't the demon gone? I saw it just yesterday. They told us that the demons from every village that had one disappeared, so then, why is it that we are cursed? We still have our demon among us, they said, believing Naruto to be the reincarnation of the Kyuubi and that it would also mean for him to be gone as well. Seeing as that every other village was free from their demons, that was also the start of something horrible, something that Hiruzen didn't see coming, as the people of Konoha had started to believe they were cursed, calling Naruto just that, the curse of Konoha. Hiruzen believed that through time, the people's wounds would heal, as he had seen that at least some of his people started to warm up to the idea of the Kyuubi being gone. They could also tell the difference between a container and the contained, though not everyone could. It was because of that which caused the Sandaime Hokage to keep his law up to try and protect Naruto, hoping that with time, everything would be alright. He just knew that if something were to happen to the young red-headed boy, that he would deal with the people accordingly. Unknown location. In a dark cave stood numerous holographic figures, all of which were see-through this time. They all stood in a circle again as an emergency meeting had been called by a plant-like being. Zetsu, why is it that you have called us so urgently? Came the voice of a man that had long hair, though the color was unknown because of hologram causing it to show a shade of blue instead of its original color. We have some urgent news to share that I have discovered as of recently. The Bija, all of them, seem to have disappeared without a trace. I checked everything myself and found it to be true. There aren't any traces of them left from their now previous hosts. I will continue to search for them, though we don't know where to start because of the hosts still being alive. The plant-like entity spoke out as the black half and the white half took turns to speak, finishing each other's sentences. That caused everyone to grow wide-eyed, not wanting to believe what they had just been told. What? How can that be possible? The masked man with the Sharingan yelled out in anger, not wanting to believe the news. Zetsu said nothing and waited for the man to calm down, which wasn't long as the masked man spoke once more. This changes a lot of things. Now we have to find them before we can do anything else, no matter what it takes. Search this entire planet if you have time. Find the Bija, they can't be just gone. He spoke out, still showing a little bit of anger as he wanted to find them as soon as possible. With that said, all the holograms dissipated to do what they were told, leaving a dark cave behind yet again.